Donnie, let's go back to draft day 1974. You're not drafted, and there were probably double the amount of rounds then that there are now. Did you expect to be drafted, and how disappointed were you that you weren't?
Well, I didn't really have an interest in playing football, NFL football until my senior year because I was so inspired by my high school coach. I wanted to be a teacher and a coach. And I was going to graduate and go into that profession. But then I had a great senior year. I had 8 interceptions. I think that led the league. I had converted from an outside linebacker into a strong safety and had 8 interceptions. So I thought at least someone would give me a shot. But I didn't get an opportunity, and I was disappointed. I remember I was doing my practice teaching, and I called my Coach Willie Jeffers and said, well, you know you didn't get drafted, but you got 3 offers here from the Steelers, the Houston Oilers, or Denver Broncos. I said, well, you know, I'm going to the Denver Broncos because Barney Chavis, my former teammate, had previously got drafted in the 3rd round. And he said, well, you just think about it, and you come in the office and let's talk about it. So I didn't feel too good about that choice, so I came to the office and talked to Coach Jeffries. He said, you need to go to Pittsburgh, very emphatically. I said, why, Coach? He said, you know, they're a blue-collar town and they fit your MO because you're a hard worker and you give 100%, so they're looking for people like that. So I ended up signing with Pittsburgh, best decision I ever made in my life.
Yeah, to say the least, and good decision on their part too. Was the Steelers' offer as a free agent more significant than the others, or was it merely on the advice of your coach?
You know, if it had been more significant, I still would have gone to Pittsburgh because Coach Jeffrey was kind of like a mentor, and only my head coach, but he's like a father figure and a mentor to me, and I don't think he's going to steer me in the wrong direction. So I was headed to Pittsburgh. So I called my friend Barney Chavis in Denver. I said, Barney, I'm headed to Pittsburgh. He said, I'm disappointed, but man, you know, you got to make the best decision for you, and ended up being the right decision.
During your senior year, or even before that, were you aware that people like Bill Nunn and Art Rooney were looking at predominantly black colleges, primarily in the South, to find players? And there had been a number before you, Mel Blanc, Dwight White, certainly. After you, at the same time, John Stallworth, yourself, did they have that reputation that this was a good place for players such as yourself?
Oh, without question. And I think Bill had a great relationship with all the head historical black universities head coaches, football coaches, and Coach Jeffrey really knew him. And when he said that, he said it very emphatically. I said because he said it too confidently for me not to make the decision to come to Pittsburgh. But I think Bill's relationship with all the head coaches in the historical black colleges really helped.
Well, Denver's no bargain weather-wise, but I remember as a kid from the South, did you think Pittsburgh? It's cold there. It snows there. I'm going to play in ice. I mean, was that a factor for a kid from the South?
I'm from the South, Stan, but I'm not cold-natured.
Okay, you're not cold-blooded.
No. I enjoy playing in the cold weather up here, and Pittsburgh was the right city for me.
74 was the year of the abbreviated player strike. Do you believe that because the veterans were out for a good portion of training camp, that gave you an opportunity to show what you could do? And when you think back on it, if there's no strike that year, do you think you even get a chance to make the Steelers?
I think I would have, regardless of the strike, but the strike enhanced all of our chances as rookies when we came in 74. As a matter of fact, across the league, I would say. But because I think I still would have had a chance if I had the opportunity and gotten the reps that we got. When we got when we came to Pittsburgh, because we got a significant amount of reps, they was prepping us to get ready. They didn't know when the strike was going to be over. So I still think I would have made it. I think special teams initially, because I converted from outside linebacker to a strong safety my senior year. But my advantage also was Coach Jeffries put in the 4-3 defense my senior year. So that some of the same coverages. and one of our defense back coach played for the Cincinnati Bengals. So we were playing some of the pro type coverages anyway. So I think I would have a good chance to make it.
Was there a point in the preseason that year or the regular season where if you didn't already believe there was a game, a play, a series that said, I can play here, I belong here?
Oh yeah, well I know it from preseason and going through the preseason practice, going through practices. Back then, we had some of the best players on our team, and going against each other every day proved that I can cover anybody. If I can cover our tight end, Larry Brown, Benny Cunningham, and our wide receivers, because third down they put me at the slot corner. So I figure I can cover anybody in the National Football League.
Now, if you can cover Swan and Stallworth, you can, two Hall of Famers, you can certainly do that. Was there any recognition, Donnie? 74 was considered the greatest draft class of all time, and you're included in that. Randy Grossman's included in that, even though you're free agents. Was there any sense, first of all, that your class had this many great football players in it?
No, Stan, when we came in, we were just trying to make the team and fit in wherever. No one knew we was going to win the Super Bowl my first year. I didn't know that. I got a little hint from Franco Harris when I got to training camp. He said, "Hey, Rook, we're going to the Super Bowl this year." He said that very emphatically too and very confidently. I said, "Okay." You guys were leaning a little bit, so we decided to bring you some help to steer the ship in the right direction. He just busted out laughing. He said, "Well, but we're going." So I don't think anybody really believed it. But when I got here, the players had a conviction because they had lost, I think, a couple of years before that each year in the playoffs. So they jaw set. Franco was very serious when he said that to me, and I said, "Great." He had the right attitude, and so I think that's kind of permeated the whole team.
Well, sure enough, you beat the Vikings in New Orleans in your rookie year. The next day, you beat the Cowboys in Miami. And I would wonder a young guy in his second year and say, 2 years, 2 Super Bowls. Well, this is the way it is. This is how it always happens, right?
That's what you think.
Yeah.
Until you don't go and make it. 74 and 75 and 76 and 77. We didn't go achieve our goal, and you stop taking things for granted. And you go back to work. We rolled up our sleeves and we went back to work. And I think 78 and 79, we came back and won 4 out of my first 6 years here with the Steelers.
Kind of remarkable. Probably a feat that New England, with all due respect, probably won't be replicated. One of the years that you didn't go was 1976. One of the things that Steeler fans love to debate is, of the 4 Super Bowl teams, well, there's 6 now, but the 4 in the 70s, which was the best team? I always felt it was 78 because you still had great defense, but they opened up the offense. They changed the rules because of Mel and Bradshaw and Jim Smith and, of course, Swan and Stallworth and Franco and Rocky. It was tremendous. But Dan Rooney, rest his soul, always thought that 76 was the best team, even though you lost to Oakland. And that stretch of defense you played after starting 1-4, Bradshaw gets hurt. Take me back to those days. And was there a change in mentality? Hey, Bradshaw's hurt now. Got hurt in Cleveland. Turkey Joe Jones, everyone remembers that. To go 28 games, 9 games and allow 28 points with 4 shutouts. Take me back to was there a meeting and said, hey, we got to pick it up?
No, it was never a meeting. And matter of fact, Chuck Knowles walked in the meeting room and they said, hey, this is the NFL. No one's going to be your savior. We got the people in this room to do the job, but no one's going to come and rescue you. So you got to figure it out. So we just went back and started playing good, sound, fundamental football. But I do think defense coordinator Bud Carson, he began to start blitzing, and we began to play a little more man-to-man defense, and that's where the shutouts came, because we had the great rush up front and played man-to-man in the secondary. We started to blitz a little more, so we began to turn it around. I have to agree with him. I think '76 was a great year, but in the playoffs when we played Baltimore, our running backs got hurt, so we really never saw the ultimate team that it was.
Do you believe that was the greatest, in all your years with the Steelers, that stretch was the greatest defense that you collectively ever played?
I agree with that wholeheartedly, because that's very difficult to do, especially in any league, especially in the National Football League, what we did back in '76.
Those defenses, Donnie, tended to be so dominant. Joe Green once mentioned this to me. He said teams would come to Three Rivers and they were beat when they got off the bus, and they knew it. And he said they weren't physically afraid, but they knew they were in for a really long afternoon. And I wonder if you felt that vibe from your opponents.
Yes, especially when it's kind of like November now, it's beginning to get cold. It was a lot more snow back then in the early '70s. And we were just waiting on the next opponent to come in, because they got off the bus and they didn't. I don't think they thought they had a chance to beat us, and because we were a very physical team. I remember when I was watching them before I came up. I always watched the Steelers, and they're always a very physical defensive team, and people knew that, and they was going to get knocked around a little bit. We might have got a fine back in the day.
Yeah,
according to the rules now.
I would think so. In conjunction with that style of play, and I've mentioned this to some of the other guys, any team that wins 4 championships, I don't care what sport it is and what city, 4 titles in 6 years, you're going to be immensely popular. But as you began to understand Pittsburgh, was it extra special in a bond between the team and the community because they loved the way, the style you played? It fit the personality, the fabric of Western Pennsylvania. And I wondered if you felt it was perfect synergy.
It was. It's kind of like Coach Willie Jeffers told me. Go to Pittsburgh. Don't go to Denver or Houston. They fit your MO. You're a hard worker. The steel mills up there. People work hard, and they appreciate people and giving a great effort. And I think we did gel with the community. I remember doing some community events and seeing how much they appreciate our effort on the football field, because I think the steel mills was kind of closing at that time, and we gave them some great entertainment on the weekend. But we fit the community attitude that they had in the early '70s.
You mentioned that your performances on special teams, a big factor in you making the team as a free agent, and eventually, after a while, you became a starting safety. What was that promotion like for you?
Oh, it was great. My goal all the time when I got here was to start. I didn't want to play second fiddle to anybody. That was my attitude inside. I never expressed that outwardly, but whatever I've done in high school, college, or peer, I always was successful. So I thought being up here was no different. And but I had to be patient and wait my time, because you're playing against all pro players in front of you, and it's kind of difficult sometimes. And sometimes you get discouraged, but you got to keep your focus. I kept my focus on my goal was to be a starter eventually, and to do all the necessary things, playing special teams, do everything 100% all the time, and your time will come.
Mike Wagner mentioned that in the off season, Chuck called him in and said, "We're going to move you from strong safety to free safety." And Mike said, "Okay." Do you believe that was done to make sure that you had a spot in the lineup?
It was done because I earned the spot in the lineup.
Right. You forced their hand. You forced them to do it.
So I believe it was done because I had earned the spot in the lineup, and Mike was very gracious and moved over. One of my mentors, as a matter of fact. But I believe I earned my way to that spot, so they had to make a decision. We didn't have free agency back then, but my contract was up.
A lot of the great Steeler players have signature plays, signature moments. You had a lot of them given the number of interceptions you had. But people, when they think about one play, they think about your hit on Earl Campbell in the Astrodome. You think back to that and what happened on that play?
All I knew, I told Joe Green knows at halftime, he said, "Man, if y'all don't stop him, we're going to lose the game." And something had to happen. So I think Joe, after I made that hit, he said, "Man, I'm so glad you made that hit, Donnie," because he was killing it. He had 80 yards at halftime, so made the hit. That changed the complexion of the game. We went on to win that game and go on to the playoffs again.
Was he as difficult a guy to bring down as any you ever played against, or were there others in that category?
He was tough. Just a quick story on that. We had gone to the Pro Bowl, and then during the regular season, we came back and we were going to play the Houston Oilers, and we was getting dressed and go out for pregame, and Earl walked over to the locker room just to tell me hi because I saw him at the Pro Bowl, met his wife. And he walked in there, and he had didn't have shoulder pads on. He had the pads on, the thigh pads on. So we was talking and exchanging pleasantries, and Mel Blanc was right over here, just kept looking like this, and he looked like that. And I said afterward, Mel, I'm kind of curious. I said, what were you looking at when Earl and I having a conversation? He said, Donnie, I was trying to find a soft spot, but I couldn't find one. So, but he was one of the hardest nosed running backs, and with speed and agility, he had it all, and could catch the ball, so he could do it all.
He was a specimen. I mean, his legs were.
Oh my goodness, tree stumps.
You know, it's interesting to have a guy like that you're going against, and he's a physical player, and you're a physical player, and yet you shared that moment at the Pro Bowl. I once had Jack Ham tell me that they had this superstars competition out in Hawaii. January, February, whatever it was, against the Raiders. And the rivalry against the Raiders, plenty of characters on both sides. And Jack was saying they spent the time out there, and he got to the point where he actually liked some of those guys, where most everybody hated one another. And I wonder if that was strange to strike up a friendship or a conversation with a guy who an hour later you were going to be banging heads with.
No, I was doing off season. It was not in competition, and you pull off your competitive nature, and you talk to one another, and so I don't think that was strange because Earl was very easy. Him and his wife was very good people, easy to talk to. Just down home Southern people.
Let's go to after Super Bowl 14. You beat the Rams in Pasadena. And in the celebration, if not even that night, maybe a couple days after, you had been around since '74. But some of the key members of the team, beginning with Joe, 69, and you'd been together a long time. And some of those guys were now early 30s. Did it occur to you that after you won the fourth, that time marches on, it stops for no man? And I wonder if you thought, maybe this will be the last one, or did you think, hey, we've got more Super Bowls in us?
I did. I thought we had more Super Bowls in us. I really did. I realized the team, some of the older guys that came before me was getting a little older, but I thought we'd at least win one or two more. But I think '83, I think we played the Miami Dolphins. '84, we played the Miami Dolphins, and that was my last chance and opportunity to do that. So, that's it. When you look back on it, you take a lot for granted. You think you're going to go back. So I would just say, if anybody coming in the National Football League, man, when you have opportunity to do something, you need to do it because it's no guarantee that you're going to have the opportunity to do it again.
That '84 game, AFC Championship game, and lost to Dan Marino and the Marx Brothers in the Orange Bowl. And even though you had a chance to win, you were kind of a surprise team to even be in that position. Was it as enjoyable? Winning's enjoyable, but was it as enjoyable because so many of the guys that you grew up with were now gone? They weren't a part of that team. Joe was gone. LC was not playing any longer. Hammer was no longer there. Lambert was out the entire season with the toe. And I wondered if it felt the same to you as an elder statesman now on that team.
It felt a little different, especially when you don't have the front four, the steel curtain up front. But my job went to more of a mentorship role. I think Rod Woodson came in, Thomas Everett. The rookies came in that year. And Tony said he wanted me to be more of a mentor role. and getting those guys up to speed and keeping them up and communicating with them. But it was a little different, a lot different feeling. You didn't have the parts that you had before, so you had to do the best you could with what you had.
Chuck Noll was the only coach that you played for in the NFL, and I wonder, two questions, Donnie, really. What was it like playing for him?
It was great because I had great coaches from high school, college, and in my pro career. I always had great coaches, and they always was great communicators and teachers, and Chuck was on the top of that list of being able to communicate and teach football and the fundamentals of football. He was kind of laid back, not very personable, but he loved to coach and teach, man. And the thing I respected about him also, that he didn't care what college you came from, was the small HBCU or Notre Dame or University of Southern California. But were you able to do the job? So I respected that from him a great deal. And another thing I respected him as I'm getting a little older now is that he never wanted the credit for anything. He wanted the credit to go to the players. And we saw his commitment. A lot of people in it for what they can get out of it, but he was in it because he wanted to teach and pass on different things that he learned from other people.
When he was asked why he didn't do endorsements, and he was offered them, he said, that's for the players. And he wanted that to go to the players. I'm wondering if you had what you could describe as a personal relationship with him, or did he not have that with anybody?
I don't think he got too personal. Chuck didn't get too personal with anybody, but he respected everyone. And I respected him because to win over, if you're coaching someone, you're teaching them. And to teach them, you got to be able to communicate and relate to them. And that's what he did. He seemed to have every answer for every time we get in a situation. He seemed to have every answer. He seemed to have the right speech for us. And that's someone that you can have confidence in. And you're going to be fundamentally sound because he had great teachers around him. So we always win the game well prepared and ready to play. And
he could tell you what kind of wine to drink too, if you asked him.
A little connoisseur there.
He was amazing in that regard. One last question about Chuck. A lot of players have told me that some of the things that he told them or taught them or tried to convey to them about life in general has resonated with them in their lives after football. And I wonder if that's true for you.
Oh, without question. He said you got to prepare for your life after football, your life's work. And this is not it. It's a part of it, but it's not it. So he used those particular themes to teach us not only about football, but life after football. I don't think a lot of coaches were doing that back in the early 70s. Chuck had a lot of foreseeability, and that's a gift. Be able to see a circumstance or situation and be able to diagnose it and then come up with a solution. And like I say, you can tell good coaches in your preparation during the week, because you're looking at film on your opponent and you know where you got a good game plan or not. But one thing Chuck was a stickler for was for the fundamentals. And I think sometimes in the National Football League, I was talking to some of the other former players when I was over in Canton this summer, and they said, Donnie, they're not teaching the fundamentals anymore. So, but he was great at teaching the fundamentals.
You spent part of your football afterlife, if you were, in the NFL. Did it eventually not appeal to you? Did you want to get away from it and get involved in other endeavors?
Well, I spent 15 years with the Carolina Panthers as director of player development. So with that, and here, that's almost 29 years in the National Football League. But, you come to the point where, I was like Chuck. I had player programs, so what I tried to do is sow into those young players' lives when and their families, when they came in. First of all, I was a stickler for, I was coordinating continuing ed program, internship program, and family assistance programs, I was a stickler for guys getting their degree when they're coming in and doing internships. So if they got their degree and they did 3 or 4 different internships, you know, and the theme that Chuck taught us, you got to prepare for life after sports. So I was preparing them for life after sports. And I used some of the similar things that, matter of fact, we had a program, we did it when we got here. We had great mentors. Mel Blanc, like I said, Mike Wagner were great mentors to me. So I created a program similar to what they had taught me about being a mentor down at the Carolina Panthers. So I started letting the older guys mentor and signing guys, the rookies guys to an older guy, and kind of like we did. And it was kind of a unique situation because Bill Nunn would put the veteran players with the rookies in training camp. And I remember one, I said, Bill, man, he said, well, we got Tony Dungy coming in. He's the quarterback. He's converted to safety. I think you'd be a good fit for him. I said, oh, man, you can't be putting me in there. But we talked about it and it ended up being a great relationship. But I think the Steelers were doing some unique things back then that other teams were not doing.
Lastly, Donnie, you're in town a fair amount. Other guys are scattered all over the country. But I'm wondering, even though you may not be in contact with them daily, weekly, is there a bond? Even if you didn't play with them, is there a bond? He's a Steeler, you are a Steeler, and that's all the connection you need.
That's it. You very eloquently said that, Stan. And tomorrow night, I haven't seen Dirk Winston in a while. I haven't seen a lot of guys in a while. When Lynn sent the list, I'm excited to start up a conversation with them, and we'll pick right up where we left off. That's the unique thing about the Steel organization. When you come into this organization, you play for a long time, but you build a relationship that lasts a lifetime.
Do you consider Pittsburgh to be your second home or your home away from home?
It's a home away from home. I'm always comfortable when I come back. The fans seem to never forget you and what you did on the football field and in the community. I like to stress that. And I like coming back.
Well, we like having you back, and you're right. You did an awful lot of good here as a player and as a citizen of the Western Pennsylvania community. Donnie, it's always great to see you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.